let's continue on. So the landscape of college football, bit of a ugly weekend here.
It was.
You had Bama beat LSU, but that wasn't like the prettiest of games.
No.
You know, I told you this during the commercial break because Ohio State Purdue was on the TV. They handled Purdue.
They did.
I'm not trying to disrespect Ohio State in any way. Like, they're undefeated. Are they the juggernaut who's going to run through it, or are they going to trip up at the worst possible time of their season? I know the Michigan thing is looming, but this team,
they'll be in the playoff either way.
Yeah,
but I think to your point,
that's a lock.
How legit are they, and are they that much better than everybody else? Like, are they a runaway freight train to another national title? I think the difficult part for them, it's ironic we're not using it to criticize them.
Sure.
Somehow Texas is getting propped up like a top 10 team, which, for the love of God, can we just stop? I hope Georgia ends that in
they beat Vanderbilt.
fashion. They did beat Vanderbilt.
They beat Vanderbilt.
Yes, they beat Vanderbilt. Imagine saying that 3 years ago. They beat Vanderbilt. That's their good win. But Ohio State didn't have to play the other two top teams in the conference. I think we've now seen there's a clear drop-off after the top three teams in the Big Ten. It's Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. And then a drop-off to your Michigans and your USCs and whoever else you want to throw into that batch. Maybe Wisconsin after this weekend. Couldn't avoid it. But they didn't have to play the second or third team in the Big Ten. And last year when that was Indiana, what did we say?
How long it would take you to get to a Husky mention.
Do you know who their leading passer was in that game? We'll get to it. It needs its full segment. We can't just do
Which
it right
quarterback
now.
was it? Because Wisconsin played like 10 of them.
Fun fact, it wasn't their quarterback. Their quarterback was not their leading passer in the game. I don't know if that's ever happened in the history of college football, but I can't wait to talk about it. Anyways, I digress. They didn't play Indiana or Oregon this year, and so that's the tough part with Ohio State. We all know the talent that they have, but I don't think they've been that tested in the regular season schedule.
USC Friday had to result in making Sam Heward wear the old punter's number.
Evidently not illegal.
I think some people were pointing that it is, but they found like a loophole.
There's a back and forth. So my reading on it was that if you use a number on a certain, like if you put him in and punt on that number, it then only becomes a penalty if somebody else of that number is in the same formation on the same grouping or something like that.
So if you missed it, the Friday night game was Northwestern USC. It was kind of a dogfight in the first half. Like they weren't burying Northwestern.
They should have thrown a pick six and instead was fumbled into the end zone. They should have been down 21-14, but the Mayava, to his credit, after throwing the pick, punched it out and ended up being a touchback.
And USC ended up running away with it eventually, but in this game they required Sam Heward to wear the punter's old number, and they thought it was the punter, including the broadcast. They thought this was the punter, and like, he threw a dime. Robert Griffin III is like, what a dime. It was Sam Heward disguised as the punter to pick up a trick play, fourth down play.
Benetti had a great line after that, too, because Brock Heward used to be his play-by-play partner. He's like, Brock, it's going to kill me for this.
I know.
How do I not give him credit?
Well, hard to do.
I didn't know where Sam Heward was. That was a fun fact for me this weekend.
I didn't either.
Whoa, Sam Heward, there he is.
Indiana needed the greatest of toe-tapping catches I've ever seen in my life to beat Penn State in the final seconds of the game. A&M handled Missouri. I think your point on just the landscape, Texas Tech looks like, I don't care what conference they're in. That's not a team I think you want to play. It's going to be a tough matchup no matter who you are.
They were dominant against BYU this weekend.
Oregon's win. Look, I'm not going to try to act like this is some separation and Oregon's now just as likely to win the title as anybody. But after Ohio State, I think it's very fair to say who the hell knows at this point in college football. I don't want to discredit teams for barely winning. You got the portal. You got talent all over the sport. There's more parity now than there has been in quite some time. And all we know is they're in the mix.
Yeah.
Much like the snow, rain weather we had all week in the Midwest, Oregon's in the mix. And they did so as much with their win at Iowa.
Yeah, it seems wide open. And maybe it doesn't end up being that way and Ohio State steamrolls everybody and wins back-to-back national titles. But there was at least a small benefit in the back of my mind that's just thinking, I don't know if they've really been tested by an elite defense this year. Penn State pushed them a little bit a week ago in the shoe. That was, a 17-14 game at the half, and then they kind of pulled away. Is the Penn State win now count for a little bit more, or are we still not counting that win at all for Oregon? They damn near beat Indiana this past weekend. There's still talent on that roster, and now they're playing with a backup quarterback.
But
that was a funny takeaway
Ohio
from the
State
weekend.
has these weird either starts or finishes. 3-0 Purdue at the end of the first, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
The hell?
Yeah, it's low scoring, and then it's 34-3 late in the third quarter,
right.
and then Purdue scores a garbage time touchdown and puts a little lipstick on the pig.
Yeah.
I think everybody's got flaws and everybody's got vulnerabilities, Oregon included, and that's going to make for a really fun playoff this year because I do feel like the majority of the teams at the top are pretty evenly spread out, and a lot of it could be dictated by matchups, when you're playing, who gets home field, and all those kind of considerations.
One takeaway too from the Oregon having the running game they had, where the narrative for them all week was Iowa's not going to allow this, and they have 200 yards on the ground.
260, yeah.
Whittington's good. Davison's awesome. We know Lamar's not playing. I was really impressed with the way De'Aaron Hill ran.
Yeah, he's super patient.
Well, he's
really
patient.
Balanced.
I thought he was more physical this week than he has been all year. You've noted this, that like since the Penn State game, his carries have gone down a little bit because he's kind of become the obvious. He's running off the tackle because he's got speed. I thought Saturday they all had good games. I thought when he ran like he was Whittington. He ran angry. He broke tackles. He made plays. His touchdown, that's a physical touchdown. And him and Davison being as young as they are, getting all these reps, getting that experience. It's just when you have an ability to go in somebody's house, a good team, and they know we got to stop that run, and you still go for 200, I think that puts you in just as dangerous category as almost any team in the country because it talks about the physical nature of your team, the identity of the team. And so I wanted to note De'Aaron Hill because I was really impressed with how he ran the football against Iowa. You know how Davison, Whittington, Hill, three now what look like kind of physical bruising backs who can break tackles and push the ball forward a couple yards even when they get contact. I mentioned going in, they were averaging 4 yards a carry after contact.
Yeah.
Iowa was a huge test in this regard, and they passed it with flying colors.
Dude, they were all amazing, and they all ran really well. They all rotated really well. I thought the way the staff used them was great. The 7.3 yards per carry as a team is the most allowed by Iowa since 2014. The 261 yards rushing that Oregon had is the most that they've given up in the last 4 years at Iowa. And so those are things that you don't usually see against the Iowa defense, and especially in a situation where everybody knows you're going to run the football because you're without weapons and it's going to rain, and so you're gearing up to stop the run, and you still did that to them. Incredibly impressive. All three of those guys ran hard. The last note I have on the game, I'm not usually this guy. I try and pride myself on not being this guy. Oregon got the win this weekend over Iowa. They also got the win this weekend over the officials. That was one of the worst officiated game I have ever seen. The defensive pass interference on Ife Obadegwu was literally such good pass coverage that you would show it as like a teach tape, and they gave him 15 yards. How was it not intentional grounding on 3rd and goal when he threw the ball to nobody?
That was very
And it landed
confusing.
in the end zone, and there wasn't a single receiver anywhere close to it.
Yeah,
because they had confusion. They had confusion on the pump pass that they were going to do. Nobody there. That should have been intentional grounding. They also didn't get the snap off in time on 4th and goal. They had a 4th and short quarterback sneak that led to their first touchdown drive. That was his momentum was completely stopped.
Yeah, but
he fumbled the snap. The ball was behind him. He hadn't moved for 3 seconds, and then he's allowed to just kind of roll over after the play is over, and they give him the first down. They almost didn't even review the fumble. Dan Lanning had to call it. He was like jumping up and down on the sideline of like, that's a fumble. He had to call a timeout just to get the review in order to get the call overturned. The only penalty they called the entire game on Iowa, they called one. You know what it was? Illegal batting on the over the head snap of the punter. That was the only penalty called the entire game on Iowa. Oregon overcame one of the worst officiated games I have ever seen.
Lanning, I think, is going to send tape. He had to stop himself from saying more about the officiating because he asked.
Horrible. Dude.
I think it was Alger. He had asked Alger, how was that not intentional
Anybody,
grounding?
you guys see somebody around there?
And he
you
goes,
see a receiver there?
And I had a fault. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to say it.
Like I just
horrible.